Hello, this is Angelia, and you are listening to or watching the podcast, Why You Do What You Do. The podcast talks about human development and psychology to maybe help you figure out a little bit more about why you do what you do. And we've been talking about, elders, and today we're going to talk about alternative housing options. Unfortunately, like I said yesterday, if you live long enough, you might end up in an alternative housing option. Once you get over 80, the chance goes up, and then once you get over 100, of course, the chance goes up. So if you live to be an older or oldest, person, the chances are you're going to end up somewhere with someone taking care of you. So let's dig in. Today, an emerging array of group housing options, together with modern medical aids and home health programs, make it possible for many older people with health problems to remain in the community longer and to obtain needed services or care without sacrificing independence and dignity. And now, like I say, my father, he has been in a rehab center a couple of times now because of falls he had. But he has been able to get better and come back home. He had a home health aide that came out and did dishes for him and laundry and, did meals and took care of his, he had shingles at the time when he fell one time. So they were still taking care of that for him. That worked out. He didn't have to stay in rehab. He got well enough to go home. He had a walker for a while. He doesn't have to use that anymore. It allowed him to stay in his home. He didn't have to stay in rehab. And, there was someone in the family who decided, he wasn't going to get to come home. He was going to be there forever. But he was not. He did his rehab and he got to come home. He's a strong person, and I knew he would do it. So, if an older person can stay independent, they feel better. They have more self-esteem about themselves. They have more desire to live longer. And, of course, dignity. The nursing home that I worked for a couple of years, dignity was not a big priority. It was strictly a Medicaid place. And people would take off their clothing and walk around and... until someone caught them and took them back to their room and fixed the situation. There was no telling what you were going to see there. And there were folks who would have BMs and they were demented. And they would take that out and play with it and, try to put it on other people. And, so in a place like that, it's hard to keep dignity for folks. It's gotten better. There are now special wings for folks who are really, out of their mind, to put it as nicely as I can. And my mother-in-law ended up in one at the last place that she was at because she started getting a little verbally abusive and was getting a little forgetful and saying things that weren't true. And they decided she needed to be there. And she was very upset because she told us when we came to see her, she's like, "These people are crazy. I don't belong in here." So, she eventually, got out of that one and went to the one that's much nicer now. And they don't have that kind of wing. If it gets to that point, then they're like, "Hey, this person has to stay, in their room. We'll bring food to them. We're not going to expose other folks to this stuff that's going on, So there are ways to keep that to a minimum so that everyone can have their own privacy and dignity because no one should be exposed to, other people's problems, and you shouldn't be exposing people to yours. So, as far as those things go. And let's see. Let's look at the group living arrangements for older adults. The first one is a retirement hotel. A house or apartment building remodeled to meet the needs of independent older adults. And now we have one where I live in the city. down Bardstown Road. It does not have good ratings. The people who are managing it are not taking care of it. The elevator didn't work, and there are people with wheelchairs can't get up and down. They're now having to hire people to come bring them stuff, and that's a shame when folks are paying to live there. But they're getting investigating that and trying to get them to fix things up, or they're going to close them down, and then they'll lose all the money they got coming in every month. Typical. My goodness. Hotel services such as switchboard, maid service, message center are provided. So, it's a way for them to live independently and alone with a community of folks like them. And like I said, there's another place down the road here and further down that do this sort of thing. So, that has become an option to where the folks all have their own little apartment, if you want to call it that, or condo, whatever you want to call it. And then they have a, concierge, if you want to call it that, service that takes care of all the other stuff for them. So, that's something that's come about. Retirement community. A large self-contained development with owned or rented units or both. And now we have those here. We have one back down from where I live, and then there's another one, like say, behind my dad's house. And that's what it's like. It's like the ones over there, like condos. They're all one story on the floor, and the ones over there are like apartments. They have elevators and they have many floors. I think probably at least 15, probably more floors for these folks to live on. So the development takes care of grass cut and all that kind of stuff. You basically have like your own little space, but they have people on call if there comes an emergency. Support services, like I just said, and recreational facilities are often available. And they do have that, and then one down there they have tennis court. They have like an indoor pool, so it's nice. Housing can be shared informally by adult parents and children or by friends. Now, the ones that are down there don't allow children. It's strictly 55 and over. I don't know the situation around that one is, but you do have to have an elder to get in. So, sometimes social agencies match people who need a place to live with people who have houses or apartments with extra rooms. Now, I knew of a woman, two women actually. One of them got an elder apartment, and her friend developed dementia and was needing some assistance, and they allowed her to move in with her, and she was taking care of her. I don't know what happened in that situation, and I lost touch with them. Like I say, I tried to get in contact with them, and the number is no longer available, so they might have passed on. I don't know. The older person usually has a private room, but shares living, eating, and cooking work and areas, and may exchange services such as light housekeeping for rent. And like I say, know who you're letting in your place, because sometimes letting strangers in is a bad idea, even if they have a few references. You don't know their deal. So family, friend, neighbor, someone like that who probably has your best interest at heart. And if you are going to hire someone to come into your space, get references, check the references. Because when I was the executive director of a charity, people were applying for a position to replace me, and I started checking references, and a couple of these did not check out. So, people will say anything. So, some folks, anyway. So, you get those references and you check those references. Make sure you know who's coming into your space. Accessory apartment or an ECHO, elder cottage housing opportunity housing. An independent unit created so that an older person can live in a remodeled single-family home or in a portable unit on the grounds of a single-family home. Often, but not necessarily, that of an adult child. Now, you might call it a mother-in-law cottage. We've looked at several houses, that have mother-in-law cottages, but it certainly could be, for that purpose. There's a development that we looked at, for my oldest son down in the southwest end of town, and that they house mentally disabled adults. There are spaces like this. They're few and far between. So if you're interested in that, you have to do some homework. Units offer privacy, proximity to the caregivers, and security. And of course, that's for someone who's still mobile and still is capable of handling their own affairs. So, that's something to be thinking about there. Congregate housing. Private or government subsidized rental apartment complexes or mobile home parks designed for older adults provide meals, housekeeping, transportation, social and recreational activities, and sometimes health care. Now, I don't know that we have any here where I live. That would be a good thing, but I don't think we have that here. One type of congregate housing is called group home. A social agency that owns or rents a house brings together a small number of elderly residents and hires helpers to shop, cook, do heavy cleaning, drive, and give counseling. Now, we do have for drug recovery here, places like this, but I don't know here that we have any of those for elders. Residents take care of their own personal needs and take some responsibility for day-to-day tasks. And again, they'd have to be able to do that. Assisted living facility. Semi-independent living in one's own room or apartment. Similar to congregate housing, but residents receive personal care, bathing, dressing, and grooming, and protective supervision according to their needs and desires. And that's where my mother-in-law is now. She's in an assisted living facility, and it's a really nice one. It's at the top end of her budget now, a little over actually, which my brother-in-law hates. It's cutting into her money that he hopes to inherit. So, but sometimes that's where people need to be. For their own safety, for your peace of mind, that's how it needs to go. Board and care homes are similar but smaller and older and offer more personal care and supervision. Now, hers is new. It's fairly new. There are a lot of them that are older that have been around. The one I worked at had been around since the 60s. So, there are some who are older and been around a lot. But this one she's in is brand spanking new. Everything's brand new. Like we call it her condo. She calls it her jail, but it's her condo because she has a kitchen area. She has a huge, I wish my bathroom was like that. She has a huge bathroom. She has a walk-in closet. She has a sleeping area. She has like a middle area where she doesn't really do anything, but it's in front of a window. She has a bookcase over here where, she can write. She wanted space to write. She has a TV over here and sitting. She brought more chairs from her house, so she's got a sitting area. So, like I say, she got a nice condo. I can only hope mine is that nice someday if I end up with one. Foster care home. Owners of a single-family residence take in an unrelated older adult and provide meals, housekeeping, and personal care. Now, that is not really something that's done here. I heard in the past it was done, like in my grandmother's day, there was a lady that they had talked about that was taking in older folks and letting them live in her home, and she was taking care of them for money. So evidently that was a thing, but not so much anymore. Continuing care retirement community. Long-term housing plan to provide a full range of accommodations and services for affluent elderly people as their needs change. A resident may start out in an independent apartment, then move into congregate housing with such services as cleaning, laundry, and meals, then into an assisted living facility, and finally to a nursing home. Life care communities are similar, but guarantee housing and medical or nursing care for a specified period or for life. They require a substantial entry fee in addition to monthly payments. Now, my husband's grandmother lived in one of those down in another town, and she started out with her own apartment. It was a nice size apartment, about the one, me and my husband first had when we first got married. And then, of course, she moved gradually until, they had a hospice area down there, until she moved gradually down to there. And my father, the one my father wants to move to, is like that. You can start out, with your little apartment. You can even bring your car. There's a garage, and you can bring your car. And that's what he likes, because he likes to go out and get his breakfast at McDonald's and all that. So, that's what he likes. But he's staying home so long, I think by the time he gets to one, if he ever gets to one, he's not going to be able to get out. He'll be past that point. But, we're going to do what he wants to do, so. Okay. Let's see. One popular option is assisted living, the fastest growing form of housing for the elderly in the United States. And like I say, my mother-in-law's in assisted living right now, and it's a good option if you can't bring them into your home, or for some reason you don't want to go into their home, or if no one can be home, like we're all still young enough, everybody's working, or like the ladies who are not physically able to pick up a person off the floor. So she had no one that could physically take care of her. She lamented that fact because her mother-in-law had a 17-year-old granddaughter who came and lived with her, but she was the grandmother's youngest child's younger child. So she was just 17, out of high school, nothing going on yet. So she lived with the grandmother, and the family paid her to do that. And my mother-in-law wishes she had someone who would do that for her. But we tried to explain to her it just worked out that way. It just was lucky that way. She kind of gave us a little, words about such things. And I said, well, you know what? I'm sorry that we don't have a spare 17-year-old child to loan to you to take care of you. I'm sorry. Then she realized, after I said that, I know it was a little sarcastic, but when I did, she realized I was right, that, it just worked out that way for her. It wasn't something that, one can expect. It's not an expectation that, is realistic. It just worked out that way. Assisted living facilities enable tenants to maintain privacy, and that's, important to older folks. They don't like a lot of people coming in, and that's, at that place, they knock on the door. The door has a lock. Like I said, the older person can lock themselves in the room if they want to, but they knock on the door, and then they yell first, Miss Coleman, and then, that she'll be like, yes, and they can come in or whatever. And privacy is important, and like we were talking about the other day, there is sexual activity in assisted living. Yes, there is. Anytime you get folks together, and it's not just male, female. I walked in on a couple females at the place I used to work at, so there is also gay sex happening in assisted living too, so don't let that shock you. people are still people. Dignity, again, folks shouldn't be running around half dressed or, with booties showing or things like that. Like I said, in the place I worked at, they did have gowns that some of them wore at nap time, and some of them was perfectly fine with wandering around like that. Again, if you're in a situation, you got to watch folks, and they don't do that here anymore. Nobody's wearing a hospital gown unless they are bedridden at the one, that she's at. So, autonomy, like I say, like where my dad wants to go, he could take his car and he could get out and go to McDonald's, go to his breakfast if he wants to. But, it's the place she's at, she can't drive anymore. And they have a bus that comes and takes them out places, takes them shopping. So, I mean, she could do that if she wanted to. She's done it once, and she wasn't happy with it. And, some people, they start out a certain way and they end up a certain way. So, and a sense of control over their own home-like space. Now, she has wanted that. She has enjoyed that. She's decorated, like I say, her home space. She's got her own bed from home. She's got her own end table from home. She's got her own recliner from home. She's got her own bookcase from home. She's got her own chairs from home. She's got her own table from home and her TV, and it's all decorated with her stuff. So she did do that, while giving them easy access to needed personal and healthcare services. Like I said, she's just been recently upgraded to a level 2 from a level 1 because she was taking the wrong pills, even though she has a pill box that has them laid out for her. My husband makes sure he does that for her. She has a bad habit of deciding she doesn't need to take this pill one day, and she'll move it to somewhere else in the pill box. Well, we know that's not good, because then you end up with 2 and 3 pills of the same kind somewhere on another day in the pill box. So she's over-medicating herself, and she's, not taking the right pills at the right time like she should. So they caught her doing that. We caught her once, and they caught her the next time and asked her, "What are you taking, and why are you taking this?" And she's like, "Oh, I don't know. That's how it's supposed to be." And they're looking at it saying, "No, that's not right." And then she finally confessed, like, "Oh, yeah, some days I don't want to take my pill, and I don't want to throw it away, so I just move it somewhere in here." And they're like, "But then that means you're taking 2 and 3 pills of the same kind a day." She goes, "Well, yeah." And they're like, well, don't you think maybe you've been complaining about being tired? Maybe that might have something to do with it? Well, yeah, I never thought about that. Of course, with advancing dementia, again, that's why she needs to be where she is. So they've taken over her pills so that, they can make sure she's not being naughty. She is getting meals taken to her room on times she won't go to the cafeteria, because there's been several times she's like, "I'm too tired, I don't want to go down there," and so they'll bring the meal to her room. So she's been upgraded. Make sure that the place you take them to has these services, and then ask up front what the graduation in price is, because there is graduation in price, and if it's something that you can afford, because like I said, my brother-in-law is a little unhappy that is adding money every month. Now, she has the savings and things to handle it, but he doesn't want that cut into, because anyway, I don't understand people like that. But currently less than 1% of older adults live in group housing, and that's still a pretty small number. If you go in there, you see all these people in there at once. Think about that, and but still, if you think about all the people you see in a city, and you only got like 24 people in that place, then that is 24 families that as elders there. That's a still very small amount of people. If you have tens of thousands of people in the city. But if more such residences were available, up to 50% of people who would otherwise go into nursing homes might be able to stay in the community at a lower cost. And of course, that's not something that's pushed. Our Government doesn't even want to care about it. But for families, that would be a good deal if they could get the elder into a assisted residence. That if that was a more commonplace thing, and there are companies who run these things that own more than one of them, own several of them, and it's a business. So they might not always have residents' best interests at heart. Unfortunately, they have people who work there who do care, but a lot of places, this is the bottom line. This is what you're paying. This is what happens if you gotta go do this, that, and the other thing. And there's no consideration for people of lower income, and you end up having to go to a strictly Medicaid place, or have a Medicaid bed where you're not afforded the same privilege and services as the folks who can pay more. So that's a shame, but that is something that is going on. So until our government decides, like Japan's government started setting some up, that our elders are worth taking care of, and we should be investing in them just as we invest in little kids by getting them WIC and things, then we're kind of at the mercy of the assisted living folks who decide they gonna charge what they want to charge, and you're gonna pay it, or your older folk is not gonna get in there. So so those are some alternative housing options for your elder. Like I said, it's everybody's different. It's an individual choice. Your family dynamic, and their health situation, whether they need to go somewhere or not. So, like I said, it's a choice you need to think about. But there are alternative housing options for your elder if you cannot be with them and they cannot be with you. And that's nothing to feel bad about, because you need to make the best decision for them and for you. You have to weigh out everybody, but what's the best decision for everybody. That's sometimes people are a little selfish and worry about what's best for them, or what's best, are too giving and worry about what's best for them and not what's best for themselves and everybody else. So you have to weigh out everybody that's going to be involved in this situation, and what's best for everybody. So that's where I'm going to leave you for today. I hope that helped you figure out maybe a little bit more about why you do what you do. Please like and share this educational program so we can spread it around the world. If you want to help me out, subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you want to help me out even more, go to my Patreon page and become a patron. Thanks for watching or listening. That's all for now. Until next time.